Hello to our listeners out there today. My name is Elena. I'm an analyst here at NEOS, and I'm going to be chatting with one of our managing consultants, Steve Lay, on the impacts of BICE.
Yeah, so the BICE is interesting, and what we're really focused on is just the BICE itself and not everything having to do with the Department of Labor rule change, but really just focusing on the process effects that BICE is likely to have for companies. So in this slide across the top, it really just shows the process involved in selling and servicing annuities. So at the beginning, there's really this marketing the company step, then there's selling concepts where an advisor would be selling concepts, then specific solutions or products would be offered. Then there's a decision point where the client would choose to purchase the product, then completing the forms, issuing the policies, and then ongoing services. So even though there's a lot of emphasis here on the sales side, there are also implied in many of these steps the service or the operational aspects of selling annuities. So the corresponding elements down in the bottom box here, it's really to say, okay, for each of these steps, these are the impacts that the BICE is going to have on operations within the insurance company. Keep in mind, too, that this high-level process really applies to all channels. So whether a company is selling 403Bs or they're selling qualified plans or non-qualified plans, these same steps really apply.
Will it be the same internally?
So internally, there could be some nuances related to whether it's a qualified plan or a non-qualified plan or a fixed plan or a variable plan. So there could be some nuances there, but fundamentally, the process internally would be the same. So the new elements that insurance companies need to prepare for, the commissions would need to be justified. So the amount of percentage or the dollar amount that's being paid to an agent would need to be justified as it's compared to the level of service or the types of services that an agent is providing to a customer. Insurance companies would need to modify their website and include a whole series of new information essentially around expenses and around commissions related to those specific investment alternatives. And then they probably will ultimately end up modifying their products as well. So operationally, you'd see quite a lot here that would need to be done. So consolidating information around expenses, being able to articulate on the website. The rule is a little confusing as to what level of detail these expense disclosures have to be, but that's something that companies will be having to pay attention to. Then before the solution is offered, there's a situation where the client has to sign this best interest contract. So the contract has to be in place with the client prior to specific products being offered. And it has a whole series of assurances and warranties, essentially. Then after the specific solution is created or defined for the client and they're ready to purchase it, there's a transaction disclosure which needs to be put into place. So that has the specific expenses, the specific commission amounts that would be paid to the agent or really to any of the entities. And so operationally, to gather the data and present or create that document is going to be, it could be very challenging because it's not always clear where that information is coming from and so on. So that could be a hurdle that companies need to overcome. And then on these ongoing services, the statements, well, there's an annual disclosure. It's unclear whether it's annual fiscally, or whether it's a annual policy disclosure. But at any rate, there's additional information that would need to be on disclosures. Data related to the transaction would need to be stored, and then documents that demonstrate that the best interest contract exemption the rules were followed correctly. Those need to be stored as well. So again, operationally, pulling all of that data together from disparate sources might be a real challenge for companies. Having a place to store those documents could be challenging. certainly for new business, a company would need to look at if it's a 1035 exchange or just an exchange in general. You'd have to look to make sure that those requirements are in place.
So what does this mean for companies? What should they be doing to overcome all these elements?
Yeah, so really they could be doing things right now, and some companies are. We're certainly seeing that across the industry. Documenting the user stories and selling styles across their distribution channels is one thing. So when the new rules come in, they know exactly where the impacts are going to be and whose processes are going to change and so on. The second is really to document activities performed by advisors to capture the value of what they provide so that it's commensurate with the commissions that are being paid. Really trying to find ways to improve overall their processes or digitalization or technology beyond just meeting the requirements of the new rules. So there's really an opportunity here to go beyond and improve their overall capabilities. The coordinating the operational activities with distribution partners so everyone knows what they're doing in relationship to capturing documents and data and so on. Adapting the rules for each of the selling styles, so really taking the rules and changing them for each selling style. And then finally making sure that that systems really have the flexibility they need to change over time. So thanks very much. That's just a high-level best interest contract exemption in a nutshell.
Thanks for talking with me.